Hello and welcome to the session. Now let us have a recap of what all items we have seen so far, and let us have a sample introduction to keyword driven framework and also do a not so cool implementation of keyword driven framework. Let's get started. Now we have seen a typical setup for a product or a service, and what are the expectation from QA in terms of sort of front end database and API testing in a bit, the overall setup and what are the expectation. Now in the GUI testing, we have seen Selenium uh, libraries and how we can do multiple things. And in the desktop automation, we have seen robot library. Now in the database automation, we have seen different kinds of databases and how to automate it using Java library. And we have seen, I think, three different type of databases. Now, in the automation framework, we kind of have asked question to ourselves like, so what is the automation framework and why we need and different offerings. And so let's see the design and enhancement and maintenance framework part. We sort of try to answer the questions in a simple manner. And in terms of expectations, offering and attributes, so we have seen, different uh, from different aspects, what are the requirements or expectations from a typical automation framework. And now let us see how a keyword driven framework solve can implement these. Right now we kind of we'll be seeing the keyword driven framework and sort of advantages of that, basically the simplicity and the usability point of view. uh, for now, we will be using this Maven and JUnit, and it can be easily done using Maven and TestNG. I have a sample framework for both path using Maven JUnit and Maven TestNG. Right. So we kind of had an overall idea or overall architectural understanding of a keyword-driven framework. Uh, We have this Excel file as an input and test scenario control we can do using TestNG or JUnit. So we have seen different small functionalities using using Selenium, and we have seen some functionality implementation using desktop automation using robot libraries. We kind of have seen the database related actions or keywords, and the other part we will anyway see when we implement the framework. Now, an overall architecture is this is a core framework, and this can be controlled using testing JUnit or a PyTest in Python. And we'll be using this management using Maven tool. And the steps or the keywords or the test cases we will be passing using an Excel file. We will see a detailed example in the further session. And this is our application under test or the website or whatever you want to test, application under test. So we have seen basic programming, then we have seen the Excel handling using libraries, and we have seen a lot of examples how to read the Excel line by line, read set cell value, uh, read the actions. So now what we will do is we will see an example of how to read the employee data Excel file, and then we will see that the same concept can be applied to read the input file, which is for keyword driven framework. So from the Excel file itself, we will pass on the steps or the actions what we want to do. So that is what we will read the keywords, then that is an action, and we will perform the operation. We will see with an implementation. So we are using this Apache PUI library when we are doing Java, and we have seen the Selenium stuff here. So a lot of Selenium uh, functionalities, WebDriver, web element, actions, JavaScript, multiple things in the Selenium framework. We kind of also understood um, experience how to create a Maven project, what are the different phases and life cycles and goals in a Maven framework, and how to use them typically. Now let us see the core part here. So keyword driven development and the basic parts inside. Now this is an introduction which will be used or which will be kind of utilized in further sessions. So let us get started. So keyword driven development basics. Now what are the basics here? So when I say keyword, so what I want is I would want to control the execution of the steps using a specific keyword. For example, very simple thing is, let's say if you want to do using Selenium, then I want to perform certain actions, or I want to perform certain actions. So I can come up with a list of keywords for this set of actions individually, and then I will call a particular action, and for that action I will perform this particular step. So in a step I will give a keyword, whatever keyword I want, and based on that keyword the corresponding action will be executed. Fine. Now this is called as keywords as utility. Now I will be implementing separate utility or a separate method for individual action, and then I will control that particular action using a keyword. So keywords as a utility, right? So everything whatever you can see here, that can be controlled. Even this can also be controlled using keywords. We will see with an example also. Now, so before seeing this, let us see the sample project. So this is a sample project I have created. uh, we can create a sample project. We can refer to the uh, earlier sessions where we know how to create a sample project. So group ID and artifact ID, and that's it. So once you create a project, then so anyway, the source code will be available for you in the description session. Now in this Maven based framework, I will be using Maven compiler plugin. I'll be using 3.7.0 version, and I'll be using Java 1.8. You can change it as per your requirement, as per your business requirement. Now I'm using a lot of dependencies here. So if you see, I'm using JUnit, I'm using Commons IO, and Selenium 3.141.59. Now instead of JUnit, you can go for TestNG also. So the same code is also available in the TestNG flavor. The link is in the description. Right now I'm using Log4j for logging, Apache PUI for Excel handling, and SQLite is for database handling, and some other libraries like Apache Commons. So this will be useful when I send an report via email. So this will be useful, and some other libraries for supporting purpose. Now let us see first. Now that this is the typical structure of a Maven based framework. Now in the resources section, I have this employee data. So if you see this employee data, very simple. There are some rows, there are some columns. So what I want is I want to read it row by row, and the first thing I will do is I will just print the values. Okay, I will not do anything else. Read it line by line, and I will print the values. So let's see. So how it can be done? So I have this scenario, and how to read Excel uh, line by line. So we have seen this in earlier examples also, earlier sessions also. So I would recommend to you to see the earlier sessions for detailed implementation. So for now, what I will do, I will just go inside this Excel util, and if you see here, I'm just opening a file, opening a workbook, opening a worksheet, and I'm sort of getting what I have to read. So number of rows, number of columns, and I'm using two for loops and reading the rows and columns, and I'm just printing it on the screen. Simple, right? So this utility I have developed to read the Excel file line by line, and then in each line I'll be reading column by column. Very simple, easy to understand. Now let us run this first. Right, so this is what is the Excel file content. Very simple. Some employee data is there, name, ID, name, salary, and so on. Okay, now this is about Excel. Now let us see the other example. So now let us see the other Excel file. Let's say KDD step basics. Now for now, let's not go technicality into what is this test step and test ID, test data, all the column. For now, what is the expectation is, I just want to read this Excel file first in a row, every row by row fashion, and in every row I'll be reading column by column. As simple as that. Nothing complicated. So let's just read it first. So again, if you see in this example, what I'm doing, I'm just reading, opening a file, opening an Excel file, and sort of getting the workbook, worksheet, column, rows, and I'm just declaring a 2D array. And in the 2D array, I'm just filling all the content of the Excel file into 2D array, row by column, row and column, and I'm just printing it here. Okay, nothing complicated, simple, very simple. This you can refer to the source code later on, or the description is there. The in the link is in the description. So very simple. I'm reading an Excel file. Right. So now there are some rows, there are some columns, and there is some content in the Excel file. So this Excel file will be used as a input to our automation framework. Now, what is the input to the automation framework is basically keywords. Now, in the third example, what I'm doing, I'm reading it, but I'm keeping it in a 2D array. Why? Because if you see inside, it is filling all the row and column content into a 2D array, and it is returning a 2D array. If you go inside it, if you see, it is returning a string 2D array. So that is what I'm catching it in a 2D array. So what I will do, I will read all the steps from an Excel file, and I will use those later in a for loop. Right. Okay. Fine. So now again coming back to a little theoretical part. So a keyword as utility. Now what we are doing here is basically the particular step what we want to execute. We will write a reusable method for that. Let it be a very simple step. For example, clicking on an element, finding an element, selecting a drop down, hovering, wait, or drag and drop. So very simple. So I will show an example also where I will create a reusable method for this, and that will be controlled using an keyword. Right. So designing reusable methods, for example, for Selenium. So what to do? A reusable method will do a unique action given by the user, given by the keyword. Now, what are the steps? What are the different actions or steps? So steps related to Selenium, step related to robot class, related to database, and maybe later on related to API automation and multiple other things. Right. Now Excel handling here is very important because this Excel is something which will control the flow of execution of this framework. So it acts as an input to the framework, and for that we need to have an Excel utility where a lot of things, reading, writing, interacting with an Excel file has to be implemented. So we need to have a strong Excel utility. Now let us see the reusable methods part here. Right. Now, if you see here, so now this is GUI scenario one class. Here, what I'm doing, so um, I have this utility which is for browser. So if you see here, the utility for browser, processor, navigation, others, and so on. So what I'm doing, let's say this browser in it. Let's see this browser init part. Now browser init part, very simple. What I'm doing is I'm opening up a Chrome. I'm launching a Chrome browser. So this is the uh, uh, driver, Chrome driver path. So this all uh, global objects like uh, final variables or the common variable, I am putting it in a global object class. So here I have a Chrome binary, some Excel path where to get all the global variables that I'm putting in a separate file, and I'm extending that here. Okay, now browser init is as simple as launching a Chrome browser, and that's it. Right, now this is one function which will launch a browser. Now on purpose these are all kept as static because I want to call this methods by class name. Okay, so I don't want to create a project, create an object. I want to just call this method by class name. Now, just like browser init, I have other method called as private init. So private init means, if you see, I've used a lot of Chrome options here. So it is all dependent on your business requirement. So I'm using a private mode here. because sometimes I need to use private framework, or sometimes if you want, you can go for a profile or some specific settings and anything like that. Right now, similarly, we have a close method, browser close method, and when we have a click on some element method. Okay, so in the click on element method, so I will find the element by id, css, xpath, I mean multiple types of locators, and I will take the action on that. So remember, switch case is important here. So what I've done here is basically I have implemented a reusable methods which can be utilized in any manner, in any sequence. Now what I'm doing here is, let us say this example scenario one. So I'm just opening a browser and closing a browser. But point to remember here is that I am doing this with a separate method itself. Okay, I have designed a separate method, and this is doing a unique action for me. Okay, so now let us run this first. It will just open a browser and close the browser. Right. So this is not an incognito mode. This is a normal mode. Open browser and set to some location and close it. Right, so test execution is finished. Now let us see the next one. Scenario 2. Here what I'm doing is I am doing a private browser, so incognito mode. I'm passing a parameter here, and I'm going to a particular website, and I'm comparing a title, and I'm closing the browser. Now you see what is happening here is I have done is, instead of writing the traditional code, driver dot find element and do some action and all those things, what I've come up with is a reusable method. Okay, so these reusable methods are important. Why? Because in future what I'll do, I will control the execution of these methods by using external keywords. So for now, let us execute this. Right, so now if you see, this is incognito mode, and it is going to a website, and that's it. So it will close the website, or maybe it will throw an exception, which is fine, but the action what we intend to do is performed, will be performed. It has compared the title, and that's it. Okay, execution is finished, and maybe there are some logs which are printed here, which is fine. Now let us see the third one. The third one also same. Now open the browser, open a website, and element process. So this is a different uh, class here. So this class is doing all the browser action. This class is doing all the open website and maybe implicit wait. Now browser other. So if you want to handle cookies, so one actions, one or one actions or a group of actions are implemented in a separate Java file. So what I'm doing ultimately, I'm just calling the class name dot method name, compare URL, compare title, and getting the job done. All right, so here what I'm doing, I am finding the element and perform activity. So in the single function, I am finding the element and performing the activity. Now what are the, how to find the element? So I will pass on the ID, this is the ID, and I will perform the action or activity called as click, and that's it. So let us see, this is in the this find element. Yeah. So what I'm doing here, so I'm getting the locator type, locator string, activity type, and keys. So typically I will do, so in this case, I'll have to switch case on the element. I will get the element. I'll have to find the element first by whatever ID, CSS, XPath, name, class name, different locators, and I will find the element. That's it. I'll put it in an object here, web element. And what are the actions I want to do? So I will have another switch case where it will do click, send keys, and multiple actions you can expand here. Right now, so what I'm doing again here is, from using a single function, I can control multiple steps or multiple actions here. So if you see here what I'm doing, uh, launching the browser in a private mode, open website and find the element and click on it. So basically click on it and close the browser. Right, so it has gone to a website and it will click on some element and it will close it. Right, so it has clicked on some JavaScript element and close. Okay, execution is finished, so maybe there is an exception generated, which is fine. So now, so if you see the segregation here, okay, right. So in a nutshell, keyword as a utility. So we have designed reusable methods using which we can control it. And again, now you see, let us see the Excel handling. Right. So now Excel handling. So what is Excel handling here? So if you see here, KDD step. Okay. So this, what I will ultimately I want to do is I want to control the execution of the steps by using an Excel file. Now, so if you see earlier example here, let's say this one. So now, so here I'm calling different multiple actions here. So can I do something like this? So I have, let's say 10 actions has to be done. So I will assign a separate keyword for every action, every activity or action, and I will put that in a array. And what I will do, I will pass on the array to a function, and based on individual keyword or based on individual activity, the individual function has to be called. Right, now that is basically, and how to give that actions or set of keywords in an array, so that I can pass it from an Excel. Right, so now let us see this Excel. In the Excel, basically what I'm doing is I'm passing the set of actions here in an Excel, and I'm reading the Excel, getting this action and the test data, and performing that action whichever I want to do. Okay, so now let us see that. Right, so now if you see this scenario end to end, what I'm doing, I'm reading the 2D array. I'm reading the Excel as a 2D array. I'm putting that in a 2D array, and I'm passing that to a keyword parser. So now this keyword parser will actually pass on the keywords, which are, these are the keywords. These are the keywords. Test steps are the keywords. Okay, open browser, navigate, close browser, and all those things. Now let us see why this not so cool keyword driven development part. Now, this is coming from a lot of online content available on internet. Now, there are many websites, and we'll see this implementation, this particular kind of implementation, uh, passing the keywords and the actions and the test data in a very, I would say, not so cool manner. And this can be, easy to understand at first instance, but then this has a lot of limitations. So this has, a lot of things which are not addressed in a proper manner. So that is why I'm calling it as not so cool keyword driven development approach. Now, to experience that, let us see this keyword driven parser. Okay, so keyword driven parser, this method I'm calling. Let us go inside this. Now here what is happening, so I'm getting the keywords as a 2D array here, and now what I will do, I will put a for loop and I will, iterate. So what I'm doing here is I'm reading every row, and from that every row I'm extracting the action and the test data and actually calling the particular Selenium method. Okay, so from column 0, column 1, I'm getting the index and ID, and test step is this one. So what is the test step? So for open browser, if you see here for open browser case, I'm doing a switch case here. For open browser, I am calling the open browser, the browser init method. Now this is where if you see, you can correlate why it was given as an example earlier. So for every test step type, I will be calling a different method itself. Okay, wait. So this is implicit wait and click on the element. So click on element means I need to pass on the element and I also need to pass on the parameters for it and so on. So close browser. So for now I've implemented couple of actions here just for easy understanding. Now what happens here? This actually reads the Excel first in a 2D array, then that 2D array will be parsed row by row, and from that every row this column will be extracted, this column will be extracted, and a particular action will be done, or a particular, based on the particular keyword, the particular method will be called and it will do this intended action. Okay, very simple, very easy to understand. Okay, for now let us just run it. Yeah, so this I will run because there is a main method here. So what it is going to do, the steps which are mentioned in this Excel file. Okay, it is going to a sample website and doing some action. Okay, it's clicked on the my account, right, and then it is closed. Again, it has opened another test case, so another browser is launched, and this time instead of clicking on my account, it will go to some other page. It is going to contact us page. Okay, test case executed and maybe some logs are coming here. Okay, now this is one implementation, one way of implementing the keyword driven framework. But as I said, this is not a very cool way of implementation, and this will, when you scale it, when you enhance it, there will be a lot of limitations. So what are the limitations that we will see here? Limitation. So first thing is, it's a scalability. Now scalability is so you have some framework already implemented and you are running some tests. Now what if you want to change a particular test step? Let's say there are 10 steps and you want to remove 2 3, or you want to modify it, or you want to add more number of test cases. Now scalability perspective, there is not a very easy way to scale this automation framework. Basically scaling the number of steps in a particular test case. In that perspective, it is not so easy. Stability. Now stability and exception handling here, poor exception handling, those are the similar topics here. Now let us say that let's say you clicked on some element here, but for some reason the XPath is wrong, or for some reason the element is not loaded, or there is still element exception or any kind of an exception. Now because of that, it should not be the case that next test case should not be executed. We want all the test cases should be executed. Only thing is, if one of the step has failed, the test should stop then and there, but other test case execution should continue. Now there is no effective exception handling in the traditional way of implementation. So that is why I take this as a limitation, or kind of a stability. Reporting. Now if you see, we have run the framework and it has gone to some website and it has clicked on some element and multiple things, but then now there are let's say 2 test cases here, or maybe 10 test cases. Now which test cases pass, which test cases failed, what has happened if there is a failure, so at what particular stage it has failed, and at the time when it has failed, what was the elements which were shown on the browsers, is there any screenshot available, and so on. which will be easy for troubleshooting further. So that solution is not coming out very easily. Of course we can try to have a simple implementation of that, but then it is, it has to be it should come as a ready-made utility in this framework. So that is what I see as a limitation. Okay, reporting. And also, let's say later on we will see, we can send an email also. You can send okay, this Excel file and we can send it as an email. So that reporting part can is also sort of missing. Effective segregation of steps. Now you see, for every test case here, we are doing some common action: open browser, close browser, open browser, close browser, or open browser and navigate to, let's say, a particular home page, right? So I'm always going to a particular home page. Now you see, these set of actions are kind of repeated in every test case. Now there is no special mechanism here wherein I can optimize this particular action, put it in a separate method, and just call a single method which will do the actions before a test case and after a test case. So open browser, navigate and wait, open browser, navigate and wait. So these three actions I want to do before starting any test case execution, and closing action I want to do after doing any test case. So before and after, or also called as a fixture. So that particular segregation or fixturing approach is not so easy here, or it is missing in the traditional way of KDD implementation. Poor exception handling we have seen. Now if you want to set up some, use a config file where you want to set up some common parameters, let's say master username, master password, and master host, those kind of thing. So that reading Excel file and interacting with a parameter or properties file or any other external data is not so easy. So that is also I see as a limitation. Page object model we will see in the later implementation. So just to give us a better idea, page object model will help you to segregate the web elements on a different web page, and that can be handled separately or maintained separately. Fine. So because of this all limitation, I consider this as a not so cool implementation of keyword driven development automation framework. Right. Now then, what is a cool approach, or so to say, what is a modern approach for developing the keyword driven automation framework? Okay, and what are the attributes, and we will revise what are the promises what we have discussed earlier, that what a ideal framework should contain. So these all things we will see in the upcoming session. Thank you.